Good afternoon, and welcome to the November 30th briefing of the Forsyth County Commissioners. Actually, I think all of you know that, well, some of you know that Commissioner Whisenhunt is actually in Cole, Minnesota today, in St. Paul for a meeting of the National County Commissioners Board of Directors. And Shea Woodbury, I think, is joining us online today. And if you're there, Commissioner Woodbury, welcome. All righty. This is our second briefing for the December 7th, 2023 meeting. We don't have any discussion items today, so we're ready to go over our items to brief them in detail. I'll turn the meeting over to our county manager.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Martin, and good afternoon, board members and staff and guests. So pretty straightforward day, basically finalizing this agenda for the December 7th meeting. So I'll go ahead and dive into it. The first three items are organizational meetings. As you know, the North Carolina General Statutes provide that the first Monday in a year is when boards of county commissioners will set the organization, have their organizational elements of that meeting and establish a chair and vice chair. And so we can do it on a Thursday because it was a non-election year. And I see the county attorney nodding that I said that correctly. So anyway, so that'll be the first order of business. And from that, we'll go ahead and dive into the public hearings. You've got a public hearing on a petition to close a portion of Morris Street. Shelley Bowen's here. She briefly reviewed that last Thursday, but she could come up and just hit the high spots on that, really for the purpose of the public being able to see and know that there'll be a public hearing on this matter.
All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. So we'll go back over Morris Street, the right-of-way closing. There was a petition to close a portion of Morris Street. The petition was from Red Pill Partners, LLC. They are the owner of both sides of the land that are on either piece of Morris Street. A portion of Morris Street is located in Forsyth County, and a portion is located in Walkertown city limits. Walkertown has indicated to us that they will close their portion once Forsyth County's portion is closed. The request to close was for developmental purposes for the Harper Landing project. Commissioner Linville, I do have some more information about the zoning, but I'll wait to discuss that more once I pull up the imagery. And then the public hearing date is for December 7th, 2023. Here is just imagery showing that this is Red Pill Partners LLC's land on both sides of the section of Morris Street that is requested to be closed. Currently, Commissioner Linville, both the Walkertown and the unincorporated pieces that are listed here are zoned as RM12, and the intent is to put townhomes there. So in the unincorporated Forsyth County, there will be 48 townhomes placed there, and then in the Walkertown portion, there will be an additional 20 townhomes. And then I'll go ahead and skip to the next slide to show a little bit more detailed. This is just indicating that the first 145 feet or so are within Walkertown, and the additional piece of the 453 feet of Morris Street is located within Forsyth County. The signs were posted on November 6th, notifying the public, and the City County Planning Board City County Planning Department found no issue with closing this portion. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Shaylee?
Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. Agenda item 5 is a public hearing on a zoning petition of Braxton Charles LLC. It's zoning docket F1633. I'll turn it over to Kirk Erickson with Planning and Development Services.
Just bear with me, commissioners, while I get this pulled up here. All right. Good afternoon, Chairman Martin and County Commissioners. As the manager said, the petitioner is Braxton and Charles LLC. This site is 3.4 acres located on the north side of Ogden School Road, west of Davis Ridge Road in the southeast part of Forsyth County. And it's a general use rezoning request from RS9 to AG. This is the county's legacy growth management map. The black dot indicates this property is in Growth Management Area 3, which is the suburban neighborhoods area. This is a location map showing the subject property in yellow. And again, this is currently part of an RS9S property, and they're requesting to go back to the AG zoning, which the surrounding area is, and which they previously had. Again, this is an aerial image showing that the surrounding area is currently large lot residential and agriculture in nature, although there is the Weldon development to the north in Kernersville's jurisdiction that is under construction as we speak. View of the subject property to the left and Ogden School Road looking to the east. This image shows the subject property to the right and Ogden School Road looking to the northwest. Here's a view from the subject property from Ogden School Road looking to the north. Again, that's a site. And this is the property that's actually due south in the county's jurisdiction, which is another single-family subdivision that's already under construction. This is the area plan map that shows, again, this property is recommended for single-family residential of 0 to 8 units per acre, and the purple on that map is the Weldon mixed-use development in Kernersville. In summary, the subject property's surrounding context is predominantly rural, although it's transitioning to have some suburban characteristics. The request is generally consistent with the Legacy Comprehensive Plan and the Southeast Forsyth County Area Plan Update, and the proposed district is compatible with the adjacent zoning, and the request would constitute a downzoning of the property. As far as recommendation goes, the Planning Board did hear this item at their October public hearing. There were no speakers in opposition, and following that public hearing, the Planning Board did unanimously vote for approval on this request. You all have your public hearing for this item scheduled next week, and I want to turn it over to the county attorney just to talk about the consistency statements for this item.
Thank you, Kirk. This property is in Growth Management Area 3, which is suburban. It had been zoned as agricultural in the past, and I'd take it for probably many, many years. However, the agricultural zoning is only intended for growth management areas 4 and 5, more rural areas. And so it has lost that agricultural zoning. It now has residential zoning. So even though it has only had residential zoning for a year or so, it would technically be inconsistent with Legacy to rezone it back to agriculture, because it's in the suburban area, and generally agricultural zoning is not supposed to be in Growth Management Area 3. Now, having said that, it's definitely not spot zoning, because as Kirk indicated, it does have agricultural zoning and uses around it. So I'm just bringing this out as a more of a technical point that I believe it would be inconsistent with Legacy. That being said, you could still approve it because of the surrounding uses, even if it is inconsistent, and you have done that in the past for some things. But I just wanted to make you aware that it is in Growth Management Area 3, and ag zoning is generally reserved for 4 and 5.
Any questions for Kurt, our attorney? All righty.
All right, thank you all.
Thanks.
All right. And Kirk, you can stay there if you want to, because item 6 is also yours. It's a resolution designating new review officers to review and certify maps. We can talk a little bit about that, mostly a housekeeping matter.
I'm not sure if, Ashley, if we have a copy of the resolution, but I'll be glad to talk about that for a minute. Again, as we customarily do every few months or so, we have some staff members in various jurisdictions who are authorized to sign plats in Forsyth County per this resolution. With staff turnover and promotions and retirements, We just need to update that and make sure that the folks in the various jurisdictions in the county are able to sign plats on behalf of their jurisdiction.
Any questions for Kirk? Good,
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kirk. Appreciate that. All right, agenda item 7 is a proclamation. It recognizes the 100th anniversary of the Delta Sigma chapter of Winston-Salem, so just a recognition on that important anniversary. And I presume there'll be some folks here to receive that next Thursday. All right. We've got minutes for the meeting of November 16th that have...
The minutes were sent out this morning.
Very good. So you'll see those in your inbox. We have a number of items related to grant matters. Item 9 is a resolution authorizing an amendment to an agreement with the National Association of County and City Health Officials that supports overdose prevention activity strategies. And you got the associated budget ordinance amendment. Denise Price.
Good afternoon. So you may recall that we have an agreement with NACHA that gives us grant funding for the implementation of overdose prevention strategies at the local level, or what they refer to as IOPSL. In that initial grant, there was an option to extend funding and to give additional funding, which they are exercising. But they've also included an additional $35,000 that we had not anticipated. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Denise? We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 10 is a resolution authorizing execution of the necessary documents to apply for and accept if awarded a grant. And I'm going to ask Sharita Sutton to come up, and I'm going to go try to find my voice somewhere. I don't know what this is about.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Department of Public Health is requesting authorization to apply for adolescent parenting program through the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. This grant will allow us to implement an evidence-based program to prevent adolescent pregnancy preventions or repeat pregnancies. And the grant is in the amount of $75,125.
Any questions for Sarita? All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharita. Agenda item 11 is a resolution authorizing submission of an application to the National Park that's right. To the National Park Service to apply for and accept if awarded a grant for the renovation of the administration building at the historic Memorial Industrial School campus. And Michaela Westbrook is going to come up and review this.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So this grant, if awarded, will allow for the renovations to the administration building on the campus. We will receive notification if awarded sometime in March.
So a little bit of background. This was actually brought to us through Dr. Bradshaw, who's involved in one of the projects out there, and it really did fit with the work that we were already doing on the administration building. And so we just applied, and Michaela did a great job getting that grant application in. And so if it is accepted and approved, then there'll be some dollars that we can look to do some other things on the campus with and hopefully finish out that project. So kind of just taking advantage of a good, unique opportunity. And Michaela, you did a great job. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's good. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item 12 is a resolution authorizing acceptance of a grant from the Winston-Salem Foundation awarded to Forsyth County, North Carolina Cooperative Extension, for the Cooperative Extension for Improvement at Tanglewood Park. So, Kim Bussey.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This resolution authorizes the acceptance of a grant in the amount of $9,500 from the Winston-Salem Foundation, Inc., awarded to Forsyth County Cooperative Extension for improvements to the Arboretum at Tanglewood Park. This is an annual grant that Cooperative Extension receives. It was anticipated and included in the FY24 adopted budget. The county will use the grant funds to hire a certified arborist to assist with pruning, removal, and the care of trees in the Arboretum at Tanglewood Park. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Kimberly? Good, thank you. In fact, we heard about the $60,000 worth of grants, other grants that actually help revitalize the Arboretum with all their watering system kind of thing that gone to a problem. So glad that that's able to keep everything ready. We got a lot of volunteers to make that work. So thank you.
It is an amazing place. So, all right, item 13, Michaela is going to come up and review. It's a resolution approving a revision to the 2023-2024 Juvenile Crime Prevention Council funding plan. Michaela.
All right, so about a month or so ago, we had two programs in our JCPC to revert some funds. One of them is due to the temporary shelter in Surrey County closing, and the other one, they received some other funds. So they reverted the funds back, and we put out an RFP for other programs to apply. We had a number of our own programs to apply to expand and enhance their services. We were able to award five of those programs with some extra dollars and also provide funding for a new program. Any other questions?
The attachment that went along with this, quite frankly, the things that were highlighted, I couldn't figure out the amounts.
Okay.
I mean,
the
they
highlighted-
all, there were like 4 charts that all looked about the same, with
So-
a few different numbers. I found the 2 that were actually given, but I couldn't see where the new dollar, I just couldn't see easily
Okay.
where the new dollars went.
I can provide a sheet that shows the differences. The highlighted sheet, though, shows the new, shows the amount of money that those programs will receive now. The other sheet was what they were receiving prior to this revision.
Yeah, well, I tried to do a little arithmetic,
Okay.
because I assumed it had to be something like that. But never, and which program was a new program?
The PATS program, which will help target elementary and middle school youth.
Okay, that's good. Well, let me try one more time. Maybe I just didn't, because the chart, you have to blow it, and maybe I didn't get it blown up enough
I'm
to
more than
figure that
happy if
out.
you need to provide a sheet that shows clearly those differences.
All right, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. That's great. All right, item 14 is a very long, involved budget ordinance amendment that does a lot of different things. I'm going to ask Kyle Wolf to come up. He reviewed it at the first briefing because of how complicated it was, and we just wanted you to see it. We've actually made a few changes to it, just making sure that all the numbers are correct. So we'll do that, and that really is sort of leads into the 2 contractual items, item 15 and item 16. So I'll turn it over to Kyle.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So, as Dudley was saying, this is essentially what we discussed last week. There was one or a couple of different corrections, and so it's a little bit different from what you see on your screen. The one that you see on your screen and the one that's the digital attachment has, I think, it goes A through J. So the new one actually goes A through I. So we basically deleted C on your packet there, and then and replaced it here. So the handout that you just received goes through it. Everything, all the numbers, the end result is that the number stays the same. But what we had in item C from last week was appropriating some interest earnings from this County Facilities Capital Fund. And so it was really just kind of an unnecessary step. And so that $1,165,000 that was in the last week's item is really just showing up in the 2019 PAYGO this year, or in the packet that you have there. So last week, the 2019 PAYGO amendment was appropriating interest earnings of I think it was around $100-some thousand. Now it is $1,265,927 because of the $1.165 million that was in the original item C. And so essentially that's the big change, is that we reduced one item that was kind of an unnecessary step. And but I can walk through all of them again, or what you'd like to do.
Yeah, Kyle had that, he had the chart where he kind of walked through what was being closed and what have you. We can certainly do that. The end result is that it sets the stage to fully fund the LOC project, and bids came in since our last meeting, and we've gotten those resolved, and so that we're ready to move forward with that, and also the Tanglewood Clubhouse project. And at the end of the day, because Finance and Budget went through all of those capital projects, capital project ordinances recognized interest earnings, which has sort of been our saving grace here through all this, and also project underruns. And as a result, there's a little over $3.3 million, I think, in
That's right.
inflationary reserve in addition to that. And so, I appreciate the work that's been done. Certainly step through.
Yeah, the end result of all of this, all of these movements is that the Tanglewood Clubhouse would be funded with a total amount of $15,973,018, which was the amount Damon mentioned before. That is a combination of PAYGO dollars over the past few years. It's bond money from 2016. It is some two-thirds money from 2018 and 2020, as well as interest earnings that we're moving over. And then it would put $2 million for the lock project, and you would have $3.3 million in the inflation reserve. Yes.
Any questions for Kyle, all those moves? I think it was very clear, I thought, yesterday. I see.
I don't really have a question regarding the moves. I have a question regarding the Tanglewood Clubhouse amount. As I recall, we were previously presented with two options.
So that'll be, if you want to, that'll be item 16, and you can.
I'll hold for that.
Yep.
I'll hold for that, thank you.
All right, thank you, Kyle. All right, so item 15, so with the upshot of finding the funding to move forward, in this meeting, we actually can move forward with these two projects. The first one is item 15, which is a resolution awarding a contract for maximum security detention locks for the Forsyth County Detention Center to Cornerstone Detention Products in the amount of $1,904,908.11. And Darren Redfield, who's the City County Purchasing Director, will review this for you. And if you've got questions, Mike Shore's here, Damon's here, and we can, and Randy Hunsucker, we've got a number of folks here who can answer those questions.
Good afternoon, Chairman Martin, Board of Commissioners. We're asking for award of this contract to the low bidder, Cornerstone Detention Products, for $1.9 million. We put out an advertisement on October 6th for 4 weeks. We held a mandatory pre-bid at the jail for a site walkthrough so they could get intimately familiar with what was going to be required to replace these 704 locks. And we had 7 companies attend. 2 of them were lock manufacturers. 1 was a general contractor. We received 2 bids. They were pretty far apart in price, but the county, the jail folks are very familiar with the lock that's being proposed. They're happy it was one of the ones they were hoping for. And so they're ready to move forward with this. Any questions, timeline, anything of the nature?
Yeah, what is the timeline?
Timeline, it's going to take about 160 days to get the locks, but they're proposing it's going to be like 37 weeks for the replacement.
Got it.
Chairman, if I may, this company is located where?
Good question. Look that quick. Got their bid here.
I believe Cornerstone is home in Alabama, but they do have a division here in North Carolina as well.
Yeah, Montgomery, Alabama, headquartered.
Couldn't find anybody local.
Huh?
I said we couldn't find anybody local.
Cook and Boardman was the local Winston-Salem bidder. They were the other bid, but theirs were $3.2 million.
Oh, fair enough.
So
That's
pretty
fair.
substantial.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, dear.
Yep, thank you.
All right.
Good, thank you.
And the other project, item 16, is a resolution authorizing the execution of an amendment to the contract with Samet Corporation of the guaranteed maximum price for the Tanglewood Clubhouse project. Damon's going to review this, and he will have others to answer questions if we have those. So,
thank you, Mr. Manager, Mr. Chairman, and Commissioners. So this item for your consideration is an amendment to the county's pre-construction contract with the Samet, which was $27,500 originally. And it would include the guaranteed maximum price proposal of $14,849,678 to construct a replacement clubhouse for the current facility built in 1974 for a grand total of $14,877,178. Additionally, this item establishes a county contingency fund totaling $400,000, which is 2.6% of the GMP, and the county manager will be authorized to use for change orders. The current clubhouse is in need of significant capital investment, and even with that, it is not handicap accessible, has foundational challenges, is kind of evidenced by bricks separating on the facade, has a lot of inefficient unused space, and can be considered to have served its useful life after 49 years. Funding to complete the project has been identified, as noted by Kyle, Budget Director, and staff seeks Commissioner authorization to execute the amended contract with Salmon Corporation, to increase the pre-construction contract to include Salmon's GMP proposal, and to establish a separate contingency fund for change orders as authorized by the manager. And I'll be glad to try and answer questions you may have.
Any questions for Damon?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Bessie.
Approximately how much of the additional cost for the clubhouse that we would be approving in this item, if we approve it as is coming from PAYGO?
From PAYGO, we've got 4 million, well, yes, it's a little over $4 million from PAYGO. But then you also have some interest earnings from the PAYGO CPOs. So that would probably account for an additional, let's see, 1, 3, I don't know, probably another maybe $500,000. So close to $5 million.
Okay, and my understanding of PAYGO is that collectively is funds that are available for various projects that the county has determined our needs and are basically in a waiting queue for.
So there's really, so PAYGO is really generated from whatever happens when we close out the prior fiscal year. And because those swings, as you know, having some years you get pretty wide swings based on staffing, the way revenue comes in and so on and so forth. So what the board has established really in the PAYGO policy is that any amount over 14%, so we hold a 14% fund balance. Any amount over that goes into a PAYGO, is available for PAYGO. Every year as we present budgets, because we've had good PAYGO years in the last number of years, we've actually identified a few projects on the front end that might be good PAYGO projects actually in the ordinance, but they generally meet 3 criteria. They are projects that would otherwise require debt, so they're capital projects that would require debt and you can avoid debt issuance. They are projects that if you invest in them will save you money. So a revenue producing project is a good type project because you'll actually have some revenue to offset the operations of it. And then the third one was really economic development. And so those were the 3 categories that the board has generally laid out as available for PAYGO. It's not just anything. It's not just a special appropriation. It really does, I think the board's done a good job over these years around discipline in, does it offset debt? Is it an investment that has a return on investment that's a good thing to do? And is it a good economic development kind of activity? And so this particular one, I know some board members have felt like it is, it has an economic development component to it because, we are very lucky to have a championship golf course and 2 of them. And
But the bottom line is that there is an opportunity cost for assigning a substantial amount of the available PAYGO to a given project. So it's...
Yeah, this one, so where we were a while ago when we went back out and got a cost estimate is, and this has been a little bit, but the project was envisioned as about an $11 million project. And so we had a number of different revenue sources because really the original origin of the project was to try to fix up the facility we had. And I think at some point in time, as numbers came in, it was, are you throwing good money at bad if you really just try to do a makeover of that existing facility? And so, then it became, let's take a look at really a replacement facility for that. The board had invested about $2.5 million in the course to actually bring it kind of up to standards just from a course perspective. And so this project sort of dovetailed into that. And so the last time I sort of checked in with the board, our project was about $11 million. We amazingly have gotten a $5 million appropriation from the state of North Carolina, 5 or 4. Four. Got a $4 million appropriation from the state of North Carolina to help us over the hump. And so we're really, in my way of looking at it, just having been through this project for a long time, we're about $1 million out from where we felt comfortable about it beforehand. And to be honest, if the state's appropriation hadn't come in, we probably would be regrouping on it. But we do have this kind of unique opportunity that seems to have presented itself.
So previously, we were presented with two options, one of which was, what, $1 million, $1.5 million less?
Yes.
And staff is recommending this option because?
So the engineering side, go ahead, Damon.
So there are some additional opportunities that you have with keeping the carts with the main facility. So making this basically a two-level facility versus having the clubhouse and then a separate facility for the carts. So you're going to have some operational changes if you do that as far as staffing and so forth. And then if you had the two-level project on the back of the facility that would no longer be on grade, there'd be a lower level. There's like an event space that you can have when you do that as well on the back side of the clubhouse that you don't have with the VE part where you have a separate place for the carts. At the back of the one that's on grade, you don't have the opportunity to have this additional event space behind the facility.
What are the operational changes? If you've got the same carts either below the building versus beside the building?
Right. So the person that is going to have to bring you the carts, right now, they're basically all operating out of the same clubhouse. They can also work in the pro shop. They can have that interchange between the pro shop and the carts below. Now the overflow parking lot by shelter number 4 is where the new cart barn would be. So you basically have to have like another facility over there with, you know, the cart barn underneath the clubhouse on the model that we're presenting to you only has heat, doesn't have air. The other facility would have to have heat and air, be separate, and it'd be somebody's office, basically. They would run the carts back and forth, and then you just have to have staff to manage that, going back and forth.
That wasn't clear from the diagrams that we saw. It looked like you were literally talking, I thought that you were literally talking about something that was essentially wall-to-wall with the clubhouse itself.
It's a pretty good hike, actually, down to where the cart barn would have had to be located. That was, to your point, that was sort of where, you know, you start losing way more in terms of value when you move to that proposal.
It's literally just across the road from shelter number 4 where the big playground is at the park. Yeah. It's not next to the clubhouse anymore.
Right.
The other driver of cost here is because we are going to continue to operate both golf courses is the sheer cost of a temporary facility for clubhouse purposes. And so I think that was one of them that surprised us as we opened bids on it.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Woodbury has her hand raised.
Great.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chair Martin, thank you for allowing me to ask a couple of questions just to jog my memory around how much is currently available in PAYGO.
I mean, what we have in that's unallocated or that is probably, let's see here.
So wouldn't it essentially be after you move the money around, you end up with about $3.3 million in inflationary reserve? That's what's not spoken for.
Right, not including, yeah, if the board were to use everything here, there would still be $3,345,047.
So $3,345,000, and what we've done is place that in a reserve there.
Well, is it fair to say that what we've just gone, what you just reviewed, I guess the A through I numbers, it's basically funds, they're not all PAYGO funds. They're funds left over from other projects that we have done, that we keep a lot of reserves set up from the courthouse, from here, from here, from here. All those rolled into PAYGO funds that had not yet been expended from previous year's PAYGO. So this year's PAYGO is not a part of this, am I correct?
That is correct. And so when we close out the audit, we'll have an estimate of what might be available. And so there'll be a discussion about PAYGO.
Exactly.
Yeah. in the
So,
next
so it's
couple
not
months.
like, this is like
This is
PAYGO
old
dollars.
PAYGO.
These are leftover PAYGO dollars. I hesitate to use the word surplus, but they're leftover PAYGO dollars that had not been committed, and they're also combined with leftover funds that were a part of previous projects that had been closed out, and there was still money left in the account.
And
So it's kind of,
interest.
I mean, it's a big cleanup. It's a big cleanup that happened to allow the funds available to finish this and still leave leftover funds of 3.3 million.
That's correct. And interest earnings was a big driver.
Yeah,
So
and that's what helped that.
that
It's been a lot
saved our
less.
bacon.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. Does that help, Commissioner Woodbury?
Yes, it does, because my follow-up question was whether this was a rolling forward kind of fund, and it seems like it is.
I actually did not hear the last thing you said.
She said if these essentially roll forward, and so we're rolling those excess
Yes,
funds.
that's
into-
correct.
Yeah, we're rolling them into a reserve, and we'll have another PAYGO discussion when we close out the year ending June 30th of 2023. So there'll be, and there's a list of projects that, were included in those, in the ordinance for potential consideration, so.
Gotcha. Any additional questions? Great, we're good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Damon. Agenda item 17 is a resolution authorizing a lease agreement between the town of Kernersville and Forsyth County for the lease of property to operate a recycling center, and Minor Barnett will review this.
Madam Clerk, at 8:33 this morning, did I miss a deadline when I tried to share this with you? I apologize for the late submittal, but I don't see it. Good afternoon. As most of us probably are aware, the county has operated a recycling convenience center at 445 Lindsay Street in Kernersville for a long, long time. And the former lease agreement for the operation of our recycling center on property owned by the town of Kernersville, the term of that lease agreement ended earlier this year. So this item number 17 is an interlocal agreement to enter into a new lease agreement between Forsyth County and the town of Kernersville for us to continue operating the facility. This will also streamline the administration of the lease agreement, because the former lease agreement for about the last 10 years was between the city of Winston-Salem and the town of Kernersville, and then we reimbursed the city for payment after we gave them the okay to pay. Let me see if I can get this view straightened out. So, understand, I can't change the way this appears. Oh. So this is a photograph of the facility. Of the 3 recycling centers we have, this is the only one that has a big rain shelter, so that's a major convenience for people visiting on days that it might be raining. They don't have to get out in the rain to drop off their recyclables. The rate for the lease has gone up, and the initial term is for the remainder of the current fiscal year that'll take us through the end of June of 2024. with 2 optional additional one-year extensions that we anticipate being approved or maybe being almost automatic. Because of a vehicular accident on January the 10th of this year, the facility was closed for the remainder of the previous fiscal year and then into the current fiscal year. So the town of Kernersville has agreed to deduct or give us credit for the prepayment for the operation from January 10th through the end of June, and then to further discount or prorate what we will owe them for the current fiscal year because it was still closed for July through October. And so the result is for the remainder of the fiscal year from now till the end of June 2024, and I have that wrong on the slide, is going to be $6,728.02. And so the reason that number is so much lower than the annual amount is for the reasons I just tried to explain. And then for the next 2 fiscal years, which will take us through June of 2026, the rate will be $23,000 a year. And the town of Kernersville will be responsible for maintenance and repairs of the facility and the site for the duration of our occupation of their real estate.
In reading the materials, the advanced materials for this, I noticed that lease had been $1,000 a month, and it basically is going up to almost $2,000 in this renegotiated amount. And I actually did send an email to the mayor, sort of asking a couple of questions about that. And do you know the reason for the increase?
It is my understanding that the site needs to be repaved, everything inside the fence, and that that might be one of their motivations for increasing our cost to help them cover the cost of repaving the site. You know, we have operated the facility there longer than I can remember. I don't know the date that it started, but it's been over 20 years, maybe much more than that. And I thought they were going to repave it before we reopened this fall, but they decided to postpone the repaving until sometime in the foreseeable future. There may be other reasons as well. I think I'm sure they did some recent repairs on the attendant building, the building that the attendant has access to to get in out of the weather and have access to a restroom. And I would need to ask them more specifically what their reason for the increase was, but I think that was part of the manager's motivation earlier this year for reconsideration of the operation of this facility.
And I'm assuming that Kernersville paid for the maintenance of that structure during that 20-year period. I'm assuming.
Yes, and I did not observe a lot of cost associated with maintenance during the period that I was involved with it, which started in September of 2005. There have been other vehicular accidents, including several years ago, a vehicle went through the fence and took out a lot of the fencing and damaged the structure and resulted in another substantial closure of the facility while that was done.
But either our insurance or the county has repaired these.
Right.
These accidents and or damages.
Either the town of Kernersville or their insurance, I believe. I don't think we had to pay for that.
Yeah, I may have misspoke. I was thinking that because I know you were involved in getting the repairs done, just trying to get the facility back online. Was the claim, well, it obviously went to whoever damaged it actually paid to repair it, I think is.
Right.
So it was actually the waste management or waste industry?
Yes, so this year the damage occurred from a roll-off truck that was there to service the large steel boxes, backed into one of the supports for that shelter and separated it from the concrete footer in the ground and damaged the support structure itself. And it took a long time to settle the insurance claim. for that
Did you
repair.
handle the town of Kernersville handled the construction and claim part of it, I guess?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I misspoke and thought Minor handled that.
I mean, we were in constant communication with everybody because we were trying to get our facility back open. But they actually made all the decisions and engaged in the direct negotiations with the insurance adjusters and the structural engineer that had to do an assessment so that the contractor doing the construction repairs, they could execute a contract with a contractor to do the repairs.
Gotcha. I have only one other sort of curiosity question. Do you know why that particular structure shelter was built to begin with? That's a historical curiosity question.
I'm not sure what it was previously used for before we started operating the recycling convenience center, but at one end, on the west end of that structure, that building that we refer to as the building for the on-site attendant, was a scale house, and there's still a set of scales in the ground. And up until within the last few years, there was still a digital feature on the side of that building that was illuminated, and if somebody walked across the scale area, those numbers would change. But I don't know if the town ever uses it or has recently used it to weigh anything. But I believe there used to be a landfill on another part of that property nearby, so it would make sense that they would need scales to weigh incoming loads.
Probably makes sense. That's good. I appreciate all the background. It's a small amount of money, but doubling the price of something between two governmental agencies does concern me just a little bit.
We were taken by surprise when we first were notified of it.
Okay, it's good. Any other questions for Minor?
Quick question, just the slide that you got on the screen, that you indicated, I think that should read December 2023 to June 2024.
Yes.
The first top line.
Correct.
Thank you.
And just as a point of clarity, the facility reopened on November the 7th, so it's currently in operation, but the effective date of the beginning of the lease is December the 12th. So if you run across that information, I didn't want that to seem confusing.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Agenda item 18 is a resolution to direct the expenditures of opioid settlement funds. You've got an associated budget ordinance amendment, and Denise Price is going to review this work.
Good afternoon. A quick presentation for you today. Just as an overview, and there have been some updates as the result of additional settlements being agreed to. The opioid settlement is now a $40 billion agreement. And in North Carolina, let me move this out of the way. That's $1.5 billion over the 18-year cycle of the settlement. And for Forsyth County, that means $37 million, and for the city of Winston-Salem, $6 million. So that is more than what was previously communicated. There is a memorandum of agreement that tells us how funds are to be distributed and used, and there are some limitations to that. This must be used for evidence-based treatment and prevention, not to be used for general government or for law enforcement. We did elect to go with option B, which gives us the broadest array of strategies available. As you'll recall, that also meant that we needed to do a community strategic plan, and that included a stakeholder committee that was comprised of 45 individuals, still is comprised. It's a diverse team. The MOA tells us specifically who has to be on it, and then we've added some additional folks that bring lots of value to that meeting as well. The oversight from county management is under Chantel's directorship, and then I facilitate the meetings. The group came up with a shared vision, and I just mentioned this because it's related to some of the funding or all of the funding recommendations from today. The Forsyth County Opioid Settlement Committee envisions communities where the needs of every person are met holistically and timely, free of stigma and judgment, and rich with hope and acceptance. Communities where the supports to achieve goals and dreams, whatever those goals and dreams are accessible for all. A place where we are knowledgeable and equipped to make informed decisions, and where individuals, children, and families receive long-term healing supports. A community skilled and equipped with resources to recognize trauma and to navigate from trauma to healing. So at the end of 18 years, our success will be defined by this shared vision. The priority strategies currently are comprised of 13 different strategies. They are representative of strategies that fall into the treatment category: support, prevention, and harm reduction. I thought it might be interesting for you to see just an updated map. This is not a full year, but you'll recall every year we do a map with the pinpoints on it, and it really demonstrates that this is problematic for our entire community. There, in this period of time, were 1,405 overdose responses by EMS. This does not include people who did not call 911 or people who went directly to a hospital, and 44 fatal overdoses. So we did a request for proposal at the beginning of the fiscal year, and there was funding authorizations as a result of that, totaling $1,388,097. We've also just engaged in a mid-year cycle RFP for partial year projects, and the recommendations are going to be for $593,292. There is a review team who has looked at this. It includes representatives from the manager's office, behavioral health services, Partners Health Management, and a representative from the Health and Human Services Board. So the recommendations for funding, we'll start there. Chairman Martin did ask me if I could give some feedback on whether or not people are currently receiving funding. So although it's not on this document, I'll do that as we go through. The first is Advance Forward Healthcare. This is an agency that has not been previously funded with either settlement or behavioral health MOE dollars, and they provide medication for opioid use disorder, or MOUD. ATS of North Carolina, also doing business as Winston-Salem Comprehensive Treatment Center, did receive settlement dollars in the first round of RFP. They have acknowledged they need $126,000 maximum to continue services for the 100 individuals currently engaged in services. Without this funding, services will end in January. Children's Home Society of North Carolina provides early intervention. That's through training through their kinship and foster parents, not just those that are licensed through CHS, but for any licensing entity, and also training for youth. They have not previously been funded. Forsyth County EMS has historically been funded with behavioral health MOE dollars. This request is for 4 new peer support service specialists to integrate within their existing team. This will be 24 hours, 7 days a week, and also includes expenses for 1 vehicle. Into the Wild has not previously been funded. They provide treatment and recovery to support individuals through intensive outpatient programs in a wilderness type of environment. Southern Family Medicine has not previously been funded. They provide medication-assisted treatment. Twin City Harm Reduction Collective was funded in the first round of RFP related to settlement dollars. They are our local syringe service program and are proposing a new project and an extension of an existing project. So the new project is to have disposable units in the community for used syringes, and they'll also do the hazardous waste pickup. The extension is additional harm reduction supplies. The Wells Center for Women in Transition has not previously been funded through these funding areas. They provide recovery housing supports. There were a number of applicants that funding is not recommended for. ARCA, Addiction Recovery Care Association, They were funded in the first round. We're not recommending in the second round. The City of Winston-Salem, who requested 4 peer support specialists to join their BEAR team. Daymark Recovery Services, which is requesting money for MOUD, medication for opioid use disorder, at the Highland Avenue Center. Forsyth County Behavioral Health Services, who withdrew their application. Forsyth Primary Care Collaborative, who is requesting funding for MOUD at the Highland Avenue Center. Green Tree Support Program, who withdrew their application. Just as a note, they received some funding through DHHS, so they didn't want to take on 2 new rounds of funding at the same time. Hope Counseling and Consulting Services, who applied in the first round but was not funded. Miracles Outreach International, which has not received funding previously. Pathways to Self-Reliance submitted 2 applications. They also applied in that first round but did not receive funding. Teardrops, who also applied in the first round and did not receive funding. The 20, this is a new application for peer support services. And the YWCA's Recovery Housing Support, which currently receives funding through Behavioral Health Maintenance of Effort dollars. They did apply for settlement dollars in the first round, but was not awarded. So what will be our next steps? For anyone where funding is authorized, we'll either issue agreements or addendums. We're going to continue to have touch points with our opioid settlement committee to assure that our strategies remain relevant to whatever the community need is. We are doing our first round of opioid settlement reporting. We're monitoring measures and tracking impact of implemented strategies. We'll issue another RFP for fiscal year 25 funding in February. Our next annual input session with county and municipal leadership will be in October of 2024. And then we'll bring strategy recommendations to prioritize the strategy areas at least every 4 years, which would put us no later than June of 2026, but more frequently as needed. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Yes, Chairman, if I may, thank you, Denise, so very much for all that you do. We're so very glad to have these dollars. So that I'm clear, did you say that there was a balance still left from the dollars?
There is a balance left, and that will carry over into that February RFP. Okay. If all of these funding authorizations that are recommended are authorized by the board, that will put us with expenditures for the total year totaling right below the $2 million point.
Okay. So with the shared vision, in my opinion, we have a gun violence problem and we have a mental health problem in this county. So I would like to try to support as many of these entities as we can. If we could do it with these settlement dollars, I also wanted to revisit our opera dollars to see what that looked like, and maybe we could support some of these entities through that.
Absolutely. Last round, those entities that didn't receive funding with, I did meet with each of them. I plan to do that again. Okay. Settlement's a learning curve. We're all new at this. We're learning, providers are learning. And want to cultivate where we can, because the truth of the matter is that we need as many hands on deck as possible. And if we can figure out a way to do that that's compliant with these dollars and keeps us in good standing with the DOJ,
yes,
we're going to figure it out.
Yeah, so I saw Teardrops. They're they work with the bilingual community, and I'm not quite sure what these other entities do. They have a mechanism in place to be able to support that community.
Right, so most people who are supporting the bilingual community are doing so through interpreters. So we do have just separate initiative outside of settlement dollars to really build services for our bilingual population, not just Spanish speaking, but other languages as well.
Certainly. Okay, thanks, Denise.
Thank you.
I think a little, excuse me, I think a part of what Commissioner McDaniels, I'm kind of reading in between the lines, is that it's because we don't know all these different sources. I mean, your answer to her question, we don't know these multiple sources. So when there are things, it'd be kind of helpful to kind of us to know, and I think obviously you're telling the folks that are not recommended for funding why they're not recommended, is that it'd be nice for us to kind of know that too. A little bit about what is the level of concern about the proposal, and hopefully they're working to try to get it better and have better proposals, in the future. And there are a lot of different dollars that are involved in this. In fact, our maintenance of effort dollars are $4 million that are involved in a lot of the mental health side, particularly, that some of which clearly overlaps in that. And it's hard to get a big sort of overview feeling for all that. It's kind of strong. When is the first, the only question, I'll be quiet, when is your first sort of think you'll have an evaluation is that kind of giving folks a year with an expectation so that maybe in June of 2024, we're going to have sort of this first, how are we doing? And the things they said they were going to evaluate. And then our big picture, of course, is the big map with all those saddened sort of tragic lives lost and a number of overdosed and lives lost is the map of Forsyth County. So when's the first evaluation checkpoint?
The first evaluation due date, which to me is different than the checkpoints. I'm going to answer it both. So we have to send out our first reports at the end of the year, the end of the fiscal year. However, providers who are drawing down these funds submit a report every month with their invoice. And it looks at the measures that are in that contract. So we're evaluating it on a monthly basis. It's really hard to look at a month or 2 months or even a quarter, right? We need some long-term data.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right. Agenda item 19 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement between Forsyth County and Medic Staffing Solutions, LLC, to provide temporary employment services for clinical operations at the Forsyth County Department of Public Health. Our Public Health Director, Joshua Swift, will review.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a resolution to enter into an agreement with Medic Staffing Solutions to provide temporary physician assistants and nurse practitioners in our Department of Public Health clinics. Contract would be utilized until staff is hired to resume the duty. So this is just to fill vacancies until a permanent position is available so we can keep providing our service to the community. This is a contractual amount for $115,000 for the remainder of the fiscal year, and it was informally bid, and Medic's with the lowest bidder. And our goal would be every year to try to have something like this so we have that, we're able to have a safety net, if you will, in case we have provider vacancies. Any questions?
Any questions? We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you.
Agenda item 20 is a resolution authorizing a contract with Forsyth County Public Library and Online Computer Library Center Incorporated, or OCLC, and Yolanda Bolden, our Library Director, will review. Good afternoon, Yolanda.
Good afternoon, Chairman Martin and Commissioners. The library is seeking to renew a contract with Online Computer Library Center, which is OCLC, to continue to provide cataloging, our metadata subscriptions, WorldShare interlibrary loan services, and WebDewey annual subscription for all of our library branches. The amount is not to exceed $51,069.22, a planned expenditure covered by allocated funds in the library's fiscal year 2023-2024 budget.
Questions for Yolanda? Good.
Thank you.
Agenda item 21, you hear from Shaylee again. She's going to talk about a resolution authorizing execution of a contract between Map Forsyth and Nearmap US Incorporated for whatever biannual vertical and annual oblique imagery is. So we'll learn about that.
That's why I got a PowerPoint, Dudley.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon again. So this project, and Dudley is familiar with it from a few years ago. It's kind of a few years in the making. So typically what we have been dependent on is the imagery that we receive from the state. So we get the state imagery every 4 years through NC One Map, and it's funded by the NC 911 board. It's leaf-off imagery, and the current imagery that we got was for 2022. However, when we started discussing the need for imagery was back in 2021 when we were already 3 years out of date. So we actually gave a presentation and a demo to the City County GIS Steering Committee where we identified not only the need for new imagery like this for things like asset collection and even billing, but also the need for oblique imagery. So oblique imagery we do not have at all. This is actually an oblique capture from Nearmap, the vendor that we are recommending awarding the contract to. And this imagery would not only allow for easier tax assessments because this type of 3D imagery, we have specialized tools to do measurements and things of that nature, but it would also help with emergency management and different emergency situations because we could actually identify where entry and exit points were into buildings. So those were some of the needs that were identified. A request for qualification was advertised by City County Purchasing on August 11th, 2023. I will note here that this had to be released as an RFQ because of the state Minnie Brooks Act that says that imagery collection falls under land surveying. So it had to be released that way legally. We received a total of 6 vendor responses, and a review committee was formed, including 7 staff members from the department listed. These departments actually do also make up our GIS steering committee. So that's City IS, City County Planning, County MIS, County Tax, and then, of course, Map Precise. The scoring criteria was based on qualifications outlined within the RFQ. You will see those in the next slide. And 2 vendors were disqualified due to not meeting the minimum criteria. They just were not specific enough to say that they could get all the imagery that we required. The requirements included allowing us to have sub 3-inch imagery. What that means is if I zoom in to that 3-inch level, it's not going to be blurry. I want to be able to zoom in and see a clear picture. Supply the county with oblique views of the entire county from all 4 directions, because if we want to see what a building looks like, we don't need to see just what the north side looks like. Allow us to have a web-based viewing application. I will note there that we also require there be measurement tools within that web-based application. The imagery must be at least 100 feet beyond the county boundaries so that we could get some overlap and see some of the things that are going on in our boundary lines. Vertical imagery is to be flown twice yearly, leaf on and leaf off. We currently only receive leaf off from the state, and oblique imagery would be flown off or be flown in a leaf off state. So we want access to all historical verticals and obliques. That was important to us because if we're making assessments and we're looking at changes in assets and things like that over years, we want to be able to compare and go back some. So we requested any and all historical imagery. And of course, the ability to integrate with other map viewers and applications because we already have numerous applications out there. With that in mind, the highest scoring response was from Nearmap. They not only received the highest score overall, but the highest score from all 7 members of the review committee. Just to give a little bit of background from them, they were founded in 2007. They have 4 offices in North America. The closest is Arlington, Virginia. However, they use regional flyers to do their work, so they are actually employing local pilots and drone operators to fly for them. So they did mention that they would also provide us with 20 historic captures because they have been capturing the county since 2015. They will provide password-protected map browsers. That includes, however, we would like to protect this imagery from the outside. And then they integrate with all our third-party systems. They are actually an Esri Gold partner, so we know that they integrate with everything that we are using currently. And then they are also willing to provide us an offline copy so that we can share, and it's not just through kind of the web. And both of the images that are displayed were captures from February of 2023 of this year of Winston-Salem. and those are near map images. This is just kind of the overview of what they're proposing that we get. Verticals and obliques would all be available 4 to 6 weeks after the capture. So if the board does decide to approve this, we would get February 2024 immediately of the imagery. They will give us access to their map browser, their public display, and all the ability to do integrations through their online REST services. I'll also note that they house all of their imagery with Amazon's cloud solution, so it has a 99.5% uptime, so that we don't have to worry about the loss of imagery. And then here is the 3-year cost of Nearmap. The price fluctuations are related to the cost of the equipment being fitted to the planes locally. I will note that the 65 is what we were told is the standard cost, and that year 1 and year 2 actually came under the amount that they normally see. 65 is what they see in relations to adding what they refer to as their hyper cameras onto the planes and doing the plane operations locally. And then one other note I would make about that is if there are issues with the local planes, they do maintain their own smaller fleet that they can send out and still get our captures. And with that, are there any questions?
Any questions? Well, I've probably got some curiosity questions, but I'll save them.
Well, and you may want to talk to John Burgess as well. You know, Map Forsyth is so unique in that it's a joint city-county agency. Obviously, it's administered by us, but, you know, this is going to be available to everybody. And you think about a $65,000 cost, what a person cost. And I think what John would say to you, and you may want to talk to him offline, is this can act, you know, we have a responsibility around measurement for the stuff. That's kind of the key element here. You think about the cost savings that you have not having to send somebody out, and I think it's a game changer. But.
And to Dudley's point, and part of the reason the city was so involved is just in one capture missing between the old imagery and the new imagery, I think I found something like $25,000 worth of stormwater money that they were losing out on because they hadn't already captured it from the historic imagery. So there is some value added to having new imagery twice yearly.
Yeah, this is a game changer. And
thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Gary Koontz is going to come up and talk about items 22 and 23. You've got 22, which is a resolution approving the purchase of computing endpoints and computer equipment, and then item 23, the renewal of multi-factor authentication, security subscription services, all the stuff that in today's environment, you know, cloud environment's essential. So.
Good afternoon. The endpoints, which is the first resolution here, is for Child Protective Services. It is federal money. We went out to bids for this. Got 3 bids back for it. The low bid was Dell Technologies, and that is a state contract purchase. And again, these are federal funds for this.
Any questions? Good.
All right, the next item is for multi-factor authentication. We did this last year, and Dr. Martin, I know in particular you asked for multi-year agreements, so we went out and got quotes for a multi-year agreement. So this represents a 3-year agreement. And because it's a 3-year agreement, we are realizing an $8,550 annual savings over what we would pay on a 1-year agreement, which represents $25,650 over the 3-year agreement in savings or cost avoidance. We did send this out and received 3 bids back for this, and on the resolution, I've actually got the amounts broke out on per year basis as well as a 3-year. And this contract is a 3-year agreement with annual payments, so we only budget what we need for the current fiscal year. Low bids, Presidio Network Solutions at a total 3-year total contract cost of $343,725, and this is on state contract as well.
Good. Any other questions? Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Very good. All right, item 24, Randy Hunsucker from the Sheriff's Department is going to come up. It's a resolution ratifying and authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between Forsyth County and the City of Winston-Salem Has to do with the Governor's Highway Safety Program Traffic Safety Project Grant Award for the continuation of North Carolina DWI Joint Task Force. Randy.
Thanks, Dudley. Mr. Chairman, board members, hey, and good afternoon. This item authorizing the execution of an interlocal agreement for the DWI Task Force was previously submitted to the board and approved on October 5th. The item is being resubmitted as the city of Winston-Salem reduced the size of its participation on the task force from 4 positions to 2 positions due to high vacancies. In addition, the town of Kernersville is still part of the task force, but they're not part of the grant funding. The city's intent apparently was to have had included these changes the first time this went through, but it was not updated on the interlocal agreement appropriately. So this corrects that. There is no financial or budget impact to the county for this correction. We do have sufficient funds for our obligation on this agreement. Be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Randy? Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. All right, item 25 is just a resolution approving refunds by the tax assessor and collector on the amount you see there. John Burgess is here if you have questions, and then the Human Resources Report for fiscal year 22-23. And that is all, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. We ready to adjourn? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion? I'll second it. Thank you. We're adjourned.